Hello everybody, my name is Arthur and today we're going to learn how to use MATLAB to solve some control theory problems. So MATLAB it's a great programming language, especially if you're dealing with control. There is amazing tools that help a lot the development of control methods. And today we are going to learn some of the basic commands so you can apply the control theory knowledge in practice. So just a quick recap. So control it's basically the field of studies of system, and the system can be anything. So the basic goal of control it's giving a system. It can be a black box or it can be a very well-known system. So basically everything in control it can be described in this way. So you have a block, a transfer function block. So based on our input u, the system will change this input and produce an output y. Sorry for my drawing. So if we have a system like this, so the output it's depending on the input, and in the control theory we're going to try to change this input for us to have an output as close as possible as the desired one. And this system it can be an open system, so we don't have any information about the output uh, fed back to the input, so the input uh, it's not depending on the output y. But if we have a feedback system like this, so we can measure our output and change our input um, to depending on our output value. So this type of control it gives us a lot more of flexibility and more robust control, and there is a lot of things that we can do uh, we can measure the output of the system and feedback on the input. So let's go to our MATLAB code. So you learn how to do this how to do these basic concepts of control theory in class on paper. So now let's go to the part where we can write code to achieve the same things that you are doing in class. So hopefully all of you know a little bit about MATLAB, the basic commands, and almost every code that we have on MATLAB, we start with this close all to close any windows that it's open in MATLAB. So clear all to clear our workspace variables. If you come here, you can see that here in the workspace there is some variables in our workspace, and maybe this is junk, maybe we don't want this in the next run of our program, so we clean this. So for example, I have some variables here, and if I do clear all, now all the variables are deleted. And lastly, CLC, it's to clean our screen. So if I do this, I will clean the screen, so it's easier to follow what the code is doing. So until now, so how we are going to represent these transfer functions that we learn on class and put this on code, put this on MATLAB. The first way to do this is to use this tf command. Tf stands for transfer function, and we can create a symbolic variable. Let's call it s. You can call anything, it can be a, b, doesn't matter. So we put this tf command, and in quotations we write s here. So this way we are going to this s, now it's a symbolic variable, so we can write functions. For example, if my system has a transfer function the given transfer function 1 over s plus 2, we could write this way. So 1 over s plus 2. So it's pretty straightforward. If you click it in run or press F5, we can run the code, and as you can see here, it creates a variable sys that it's a continuous time transfer function, and it's exactly what we wanted, 1 over s plus 2. So that's the first way. And the second way that we can write a transfer function, it's to explicitly give the values of the numerator and the denominator. And in MATLAB we're only going to write the coefficients of the polynomials. So for example, this, if I want to write the same transfer function as above, I can do like this, and now the coefficients of the other transfer functions, it's 1 and 2. So the number that's multiplying s, I can put 1 here, it will be the same, and the number that's multiplying the independent term, so it's 2, so it's here. And if you want to write we always have to write this in the full form of the polynomial. So for example, if our transfer function was 1 over s squared plus 2, here I should write this way. So, and if we have the coefficients of the numerator and the denominator, we can write the system like this. So tf, now you receive the numerator and the denominator, and if you run it, as you can see, it creates the same transfer function, so the both ways are exactly the same, of course. Now we are going to learn the basic association of blocks, of control blocks. So for example, if there is 2 blocks one after another, it's a series connections, so you could write each block independently. For example, if G1 was 1 over s plus 2 and G2 is equals this system 2, we could write them separately. And then if you want a series connection, we could use the following command. And if you run it, so now this sys1, it's the combination of these two systems, and if you multiply these two equations, these two polynomials, it will be this, it will be equal like this. You can do by hand if you want, but if our system has other blocks association is when you have these parallel connections, so our input will go to G1 and D2, and after it will be summed like this to give our output Y. So we can't have this behavior using the parallel command. So this system2, I will use the same G1 and G2, so parallel, and just if you press tab you can autocomplete the commands. Maybe it's a useful tool to use. So G1 and G2, and if you run it, let's see the result. So this is what happens when you sum the G1 and G2. So after this we have the feedback command. So if your blocks are like this, so in this way it's just the feedback control block doesn't have any values, but it could be easily like this. So we have a transfer function in the feedback part of the system, so also called this censoring transfer function. So this is very common as well. So to use this we will use the feedback command as expected. So the system tree to be feedback, and we can use G1 again and G2, and if you run it, this is the closed loop transfer function. Okay, so besides that, this is a very nice beginning. So we can write our transfer function, we can associate the transfer functions in series, parallel, feedback, and everything you want. And we can MATLAB has some commands that we can easily see the output of the system. For example, if you use the step command, it will give the step response of the system. So for example, the step response of G2, for example, will give us this result. So this is a oscillating case. So if you give a step response, it's the output is oscillating. So this can tell much about the system. So the system is naturally in the border of the stability. So the system is oscillating. So let's try if a system that does not oscillate. So G1, as you can see, is a first order system, 1 over S plus 2. So this type of system, it has imaginary poles, so we know that the system is stable. And since it's not, it has a real part different than 0, this system will be stable, so it will be a little bit different than the G2. So let's see the result. So see, now we have a system that starts at 0 and it accommodates in this 0.5. So let's give another example. Let's change this to a system that it oscillates, but it's, if we use this system, let's see what happens. A second order system. So now we have a system that oscillates a little bit, but then it stabilizes in the 0.5. So now we have example of 3 different systems. One stable, one that is the border of the stability, and another one that oscillates and stabilizes. So this happens because the roots of the systems, it's imaginary. Also, it's a very useful command if you want to know the poles of the zeros of the systems. For example, if I want to know the poles of this system, we can use the command roots or root, let me so the roots of the denominator. So see, it's there is a imaginary part on this transfer function, and there is a negative real part. So this negative part, it means that the system will be stable, and the imaginary part, it means that the system will oscillate. So lastly, let's just try to see a unstable system. So here, if we change this value to -2, now the poles of the system will be 2, so positive. And as you remember, if we have a system with positive poles, this system will be unstable. So let's just check if we are right. And as you can see, the output goes to infinity, so this system is unstable. So we have this step, but you can also investigate the characteristics of the systems in the time domain using the impulse command. So if we have the now the input is not a step anymore, it's an impulse, and the system is unstable, so the output will also go to infinity. And if you use our G2, there is a stable system. The system will go to 0. Let's just check. And as expected, after the impulse in the beginning, the system will oscillate a little bit, but it will go to 0 as expected. And of course, if we have a system that the real part is 0, so let's check. So as you can see, the real part of the system is 0, so the impulse response will oscillate, as we can check again here. So in the step response and the impulse response, if the system is marginally stable, it will oscillate. So for the time analysis, the most important thing is this step and impulse response. So let's just leave it both here, and we can use the figure to open in different figures, otherwise it will plot in the same graph. Now let's do another command. So for example, a second order system, every system, it's a second order system can be expressed in this way. So second order system, it can be written as omega 0 squared divided by s squared plus 2 times zeta times omega 0 s plus omega 0 squared. So we can check the step response of the system. And only by looking this, we know that since this zeta is different than 0, this system will oscillate. So let's check. So yeah, it's oscillating a little bit as expected, and give us the response. So but this but the time response is not the only thing that MATLAB is capable of. We can also analyze in the frequency domain. So one of the most valuable tools in the frequency domain is the Bode Plot. So of course we have the Nyquist plot, for example, but let's focus in the Bode Plot. So if you use the command Bode, we can analyze our second order system. as you can see here, we have the magnitude of the system and also the phase shift of the system. So if we want to analyze, we can in the frequency domain we can analyze. This graph is not the easiest one to analyze, so let's change this system a little bit. For example, let's use this system, maybe the system 2, to analyze the system. Let's see the Bode plot. So now we can see the system. Let's do a different one. So let's make the G2 like this system, and let's have the system in series, and let's analyze this system on the Bode plot. Okay, so this one it's a little bit closer for the thing that we saw in class. So as you remember, in each pole the magnitude will have a decay of 20 dBs per decade. So in this case we have two poles, one in -2 and one in -5, and if you see here, I don't have, let's see, so we have the first decay and after the second decay. Actually, let's put this a little bit further, maybe it's easier to analyze that way. So here it's easier to see that one of the poles are in -10 and other in -100, so here and here. So here you can see that it starts to have a decay, and in this point a decay of 20 decibel per decade, and after 40 decibel per decade. But this real Bode diagram, it's a little bit more difficult to understand than asymptotic one. Hopefully we have in the Moodle website this Bode asymptotic that will draw both system, the real one and the one that we use to draw on the Linlog paper. So if you go to Moodle and download this, you can see the code will be like this. Maybe some here to clear the screen as well. And here we have this numerator and denominator here, but we want to use this here. So to use this, we could write, first of all we have to put this M file that we download from Moodle in the same directory of the same directory that we have. So as you can see in my current folder, I have the test, and I have this this M file here that will plot our Bode diagram. And if you write the name of the file, here in one command, we are going to run the file. So this is useful. Maybe you want to split your code in another N file, and you can call it like this. But then we have a little bit of a problem, because as you saw, it's not the same graph that you want. Why? Because here it's plotting the Bode plot of this system with numerator 0.1 and denominator 10, 1 and 0. So if you want to use this to draw the Bode diagram of this system here, this system 1, we have to change this code a little bit. So first of all, let's erase this part, because now I don't want to write to clear my workspace, and I also don't want this system. I want to pass the system, the variables of this system here to this script. So the one easy way to do this is to declare a function. So all of these will be a function, and let's put an end to this function. And if you write function, you are define the function, so you have to put the name of the function that will be called like this. It can be the same name of the file. And here we put the inputs of our system. So I will pass through the numerator, and the denominator I will not hard code as it's here. And if you wanted output of the system, we could put like this. For example, I want these 0 roots variables. I don't know, but it's not our case. We just want to plot. We don't want the function to give anything back. So now in my test file, now this it's a function that receives some arguments. So let's put the arguments here. So for example, I can have this numerator and denominator pass through here, and now we'll plot the Bode plot for this system. So let's run it. And let me just comment this because it's plotting both. So okay, so now we have the real system. You see that's a little bit different, but in most of the parts it's pretty similar. So that's a nice thing to do. And last of all, I want to show you another thing that we can do we can also use, instead of Bode plot, we can use this margin command. It's very similar to the Bode plot, but it will not only generate the plot as we had earlier, but it will also give us the gain margin and the phase margin. In this case, both of them are infinite because our system does not cross this zero line here, and neither this minus 180. But if you change a system a little bit to so an example of a system that have both phase and gain margin is this one, and let's see. So here we can see that the gain margin it's 4.77 dBs, and the phase margin it's 11.3 degrees. And as so this is not a very stable system, so usually you want this phase margin to be between 30 or 45 degrees. Next laboratory it will be based on the it will be designing a PD control based on the Bode plot. So so next class you'll learn about this, how to make this system like this more robust. But for now, this is the basic concepts that I wanted to show you. So this how to create a transfer function in MATLAB, how to associate different blocks, how to see the time, how to make some time analysis, and also frequency analysis with the Bode plot and the margin command. So hope let's hope you find this useful, and any doubts just send me an email or something like this, and hopefully now you have the tools to make most of the examples in the slides on MATLAB, maybe to see if you're doing right or not. This you can use to verify your results. Let the MATLAB do the heavy math for you, and that's all. Thank you so much.